Welcome to the Private Practice with Soul podcast. My name is Dr. Brooklyn Storme, and I help private practice owners align their business back with their soul's calling, with their big vision and with their soul's purpose. Unlike other private practice coaches, I've traveled the world in search of spiritual resources, spiritual tools, education and information so that you can have the transformation that your soul desires and needs so that you can up-level your business. How much fun is this? I love it so much. Guys, if you're not already a member of the Private Practice Monthly Mentorship Group, please check out the show notes. I would love for you to be there. In the meantime, thank you so much for pushing play today. Let's begin. Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Private Practice with Soul podcast. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to another episode. And thank you so much. We are at 9,000 downloads now, and I'm super pleased because that tells me that the information I'm sharing with you is of use, which is good because that's my intention, to be helpful. As you know, that's one of my values. I also want to, of course, welcome the new subscribers. Thank you so much for finding this podcast and for pushing play on the episode today. So, what I wanted to do was take you a little bit deeper today. So it's a little bit woo, but not too much woo. I think you'll be able to get on board with it. And the reason that I wanted to do this type of podcast for you was because the last couple have been really kind of geared around masculine energy. And I felt it would be good to balance things out a little bit and to get back into that spiritual, soul-based content that I know you love so much. So I thought we'd begin today by having a look at a few different areas and how they interrelate in terms of us as women being able to truly embody what it means to be able to create and maintain a soul-led private practice. So this is a really, really fantastic episode. I know that you're going to love it. So let's get on to it. What is the mind? Now, I don't know about you, but I think when I think of the mind, I'm not a great example because I've been studying it for a while, but maybe in the past when I would think of the mind, I would think about the mind in terms of what I'm thinking, what I'm saying, what I'm doing, cognitive type things, sensory type things. That's what would come to me. And I think even now today, when we study at university and we're studying psychology or counseling or things like that, maybe even coaching if you study it in the course that you do, we learn that the mind is quite cognitive based, but if you actually study the mind, one of the things that you learn is that it's not an, let's say Australian term. The word mind actually has its roots in Greek. And in Greek, the word for mind is nous, N-O-U-S. Also, we might say nous. We might colloquially say things to each other like, oh, use your nous, or where's your nous, or something like that. So it comes from Greek, and the definition of the mind in Greek is the spiritual eye of the heart. How beautiful is that? The mind, this idea that the mind is the spiritual eye of your heart. Now, I think that this is so beautiful because when we can think about the mind in this way, it really opens up a whole new way of us being in life and, of course, in our practice and, of course, with our clients. It's described by Megan Watterson. She's got this really great analogy of the spiritual eye of the heart being like the mind as an aperture, the mind as a lens for interpreting everything that we experience through the world around us. And, we have, when we think about the mind in this way, what we can experience is this knowing that we can connect in with our heart space. So our heart space is, let's say, soul. And that soul is divine. And we are, wholly divine and wholly human at the same time, right? And so by understanding the mind as the aperture for linking in with that heart space, for linking in with your soul, it means that we can access that divine within us. We can access that soul, that source, that energy from within us, to help us cope or navigate or, whatever it is we need to do in the world, in our life, in our personal life, and in our private practice. We already have this connection to the divine. We don't need an outside institution to tell us how to do something. We don't need to complete a certain set of tasks in order to be able to connect with the soul or to connect with that divine energy or that that beautiful energy or source energy or whatever it is that you want to call it. It's already within us. We don't have to wait for something external to happen in order for us to be able to connect in with it now. And the beauty of understanding the mind in the context of being the spiritual eye of the heart means that when we can understand this concept and when we are open to playing with this concept, we can start to experience things very, very differently in our practice. And that's what makes our practice so unique and so different to other models of private practice out there that are very masculine driven. And it's because we understand about this mind being the aperture, connecting us into that soul energy that we already have access to within us, allows us to create a different experience, not only for ourselves as women healers and as women helpers, but it also creates a different experience for our clients. And it means that we start to just very naturally and very organically vibe with the people that we want to work with, that get how we work, that are ready for this type of work in a deeper level. And I'm not really specifically talking about, let's throw CBT out the window. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how you run your private practice and how you can use your mind, how you can access that spiritual eye of the heart when it comes to creating those masculine things that you need. The masculine being the structure, and that structure is, say, your policies and your procedures, for example. Imagine what a cancellation policy looks like coming from a different school of thought that's all very mechanical, versus a cancellation policy that's written through accessing the mind, through accessing the spiritual eye of the heart, through connecting in with your soul. Those two cancellation policies are going to look very different. They're going to have very different vibrations. And they're going to be experienced very differently by your clients. Imagine, even for yourself, going and seeing a therapist or a supervisor, and she's got this very mechanical, very cut and dry cancellation policy over here. But then you go and work with, say, a practitioner that's embodying truth, that's embodying soul, that's connecting with her purpose, and you experience that cancellation policy. I'm sure that's going to be a much higher vibration, and it's going to have a vibration perhaps of love, of honesty, of appreciation, of compassion, that this first policy is not going to have. And when we're creating a private practice with soul, this is what we're talking about. It's more than just us wearing tie-dyed clothes and having dreadlocks and drinking herbal teas and stuff like that. This is about the much deeper work. And this is about infusing your private practice with what we call your spiritual practice. And it's scary for some people who are used to the mechanical model and who want to play it safe and who want to follow the rules. They have their own fears about that. And that's okay. when those people have those fears, they're perhaps going to pass judgment on you or on how you do things or on how you want to show up or on who you're being or how you're being and things like that. And we'll get to what that means for you in a moment and how you can deal with that. But before we do, the next thing that I want to sort of lead into now is this idea of being present, because it's not going to be possible for you to, or for me, to be able to connect in with our mind, with, the eye of our heart, that spiritual eye of our heart, if we're not being present. We need to be present in order to do that. If we find ourselves in our life or in our business in, say, an energetic space or a mind space, a head space, if you like, of sadness, of feeling flat, of feeling depressed about things that have happened in the past, then if we think about time and we look back at the definition of the word time, that's also rooted in Greek, in the Greek word chronos. And the Greek word chronos means divine time. And divine time means the present. It means being alive here in the present moment. There's a word for death in Greek that eludes me now, it escapes me now, and I can't remember what it is, but the meaning of death in Greek means existing elsewhere. So it doesn't mean we stop existing. Death doesn't mean we stop existing. Death means we simply exist elsewhere. And when we understand that that's what death is, and when we understand this idea of divine time, what we can see then is that we're only alive, so to speak, in the present moment. That's when we're connected to source energy. That's when we're connected to God, if you want to use that word, or your divine essence or your core essence. This is happening in the present. This is where we're alive. So when our mind and our heart and our feelings and our emotions are caught up on past events, it's as if we are not alive in the present moment. It's as if we are existing elsewhere, right? Likewise, if we are worrying about things that might happen, and we're worrying about things that could happen and shouldn't happen and things like that, again, we aren't in divine time, so we can't be alive in this present moment, and therefore we can't be connecting in to our mind in this present moment. If we are off in the future, we are living elsewhere. We are existing elsewhere. Okay, makes sense? You following? We're existing elsewhere. We can't exist in more than one place at a time. And so the thing to try and do is to, with your awareness, okay, I'm worrying about what's going to happen if I don't go to work tomorrow. I'm worrying about what's going to happen if I post this vulnerable content and people judge me. If we're off in that space, you're not here and now. You're not living in the present moment. You can't access that soul, which means when you're not accessing that soul energy, when you're existing elsewhere, you're not existing with soul, you're existing with ego. Okay? You're existing with ego. And ego is not bad, as I've mentioned to you before. I appreciate and I'm thankful that we have ego, and I believe it's a whole other episode, but we need it to survive in the world, and that's okay. But I understand that when we're living in ego, we're in fear, we're in judgment of ourselves, we're caught up in cognition, we're caught up in unwanted feelings, and that's not love. Love doesn't know judgment. Love doesn't know fear. Love knows acceptance. And so with that awareness, that you're living elsewhere energetically, that's your cue to find a way to bring your awareness back to the present moment where you can be living here, where you can be existing here, and in your existence here, access your mind, access that spiritual heart of your soul. And that is where you'll be able to process the things that come up for you. Okay. So the next thing that I wanted to talk to you about, what this leads into now, is this idea of judgment. And this is really important because it's something as women I think we can be really susceptible to, perhaps because we naturally are healers, we naturally are nurturers, we naturally are givers, we're naturally lovers. So judgment can be very, very painful for us because it's interpreted by our ego. So, there's this idea that you've probably heard. Do you remember, was it Brad Pitt in that film called Seven Deadly Sins? Or what was it? I don't know. Something about the seven deadly sins. And there was like gluttony and greed and desire and all of those sorts of things. All of those sorts of things have been, we've been kind of encoded in our existence of the world, in our experience of society, to understand perhaps that those are seven deadly sins, like we should not be doing those things. But what if those things are actually the point of us being human? I know I told you I was going deep today. What if those seven things, like, desire of the flesh, zeal for death, which is what gluttony is, what if all of those things were part of the point of us incarnating as human, right? If we are wholly divine and wholly human at the same time, and when our physical body ceases to exist, we just continue to live elsewhere or exist elsewhere, then maybe part of the point of us being human right now is to experience those seven things. And the reason that I'm sharing this with you is because I think when you think about running a soul-led private practice, or when you think about having a very spiritual life or a soul-informed life, we can really get caught up on doing the things that we think we ought to be doing, or that we've been conditioned or programmed to think a spiritual person does or a soulful person does. And when we stuff up, and when we experience things like lust or greed or gluttony or whatever it is we're experiencing, we can sometimes feel we're not spiritual women and we must be doing it wrong and we're not good enough. And that can unlock a domino effect of, we're not good enough as people, we're not good enough to do this, we're not good enough to show up in a healing space, we're not good enough for ourselves. Why, if we can't do it, how on earth can we be teaching other people how to embody their authentic self, embody their true self? So do you see what I'm saying? Like, it can kind of get a bit out of control. But what I want you to know is that there's no right or wrong way for you to be embodying your soul space. There's no right or wrong way. I don't believe you can stuff it up. All right. It's going to look a little bit different for everybody, but the key is going to be the same. The key is going to be your willingness to be able to drop out of your ego into your heart. And that's what we talk about with masculine and feminine energy. We want to drop out of your head and into your heart, out of the masculine into the feminine. And it's through practicing doing this that it's going to become second nature for you. And so one area that this is really going to be so expansive and so helpful for you in your private practice is going to be with this idea of judgment, because guys, it's only March, right? I think we're in week 14 of the year or something like that. And already I've created 2 opt-ins for you guys around how to get referrals and the steps that you need to take in order to get those referrals. But the feedback that I get from some of you is, I don't want to do that because I don't want to be seen. And it's strange to me because part of your feminine energy wants to be seen, right? You want to be seen because you know without being seen, you're not going to be visible to those people who really need you. They're not going to know where to find you. Yet ego comes in and says, well, hang on, if I'm visible and I'm seen, then I'm vulnerable because someone might say something bad on my post, or someone might judge me, or someone might troll me, or it's not going to feel good for me when that happens. And I want to avoid that unwanted feeling, so I'm just not going to do it. It's like, in a way, we're putting avoidance of you feeling uncomfortable in front of this strong soul desire you have to help. Does that make sense, what I'm saying there? And so, we absolutely need ego. It's got to keep us alert. It's got to keep us safe. It's got to keep us thriving. And it has to help us have this human experience, okay? It's not that we're human and we've got to do all of these things so that when we die, we're going to experience a soul connection. No, you are already your soul here. You already have access to your soul here. Okay. But when it comes to feeling judged, if it happened to me twice this week. I got an angry face on a video that I posted about soul-centered supervision. And I don't know who this lady was. She's not a counselor according to her profile. So maybe she's just a random person who accidentally saw my Facebook ad that was promoting soul-centered supervision. But anyway, she put an angry face. And honestly, of all the hundreds of, if not thousands of videos and posts I've done over the last 5 years, this was my first angry face. And, at first I felt that sting and I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done that's upset somebody? Because of course I don't want to be upsetting. I want to be empowering. So I'm having the opposite reaction to my intention. So it felt really clunky and off. And, all these emotions come up, like I felt it in my body, and I'm not really great at connecting in somatically. Like, when people say tune into your body, what do you notice? What do you feel? I only ever feel things in my heart space. And sometimes I can tune into feeling things maybe tense in my jaw or my shoulders, but usually nothing really comes up much for me in my body. But when I saw the angry face, of course, suddenly I had butterflies and my heart started racing and my face went red, and I was thinking all sorts of things. My mind was racing, thinking, what have I done? I rewatched the video to make sure I hadn't said any bad words or language or anything deliberately offensive. And, for the life of me, I couldn't find out why she would have put this angry face. I still don't know why. But what I was able to do was recognize, after feeling all of that, of course, recognize that this is ego coming in, because ego wants to protect me and keep me really safe. So ego is wanting answers and wanting solutions, and of course thinking about what it needs to do next. Are we going to go into fear? Are we going to go into flight? Am I going to delete the post? Am I going to take it down altogether? Am I going to, out this woman on the post and say, hey, why'd you put an angry face? Is everything okay? Am I going to approach it from compassionate curiosity? Am I going to send her a message? So all these things are going through my mind. Do I just leave it? So all those things were going through my mind. But when I was able to come into the awareness of what was going on and say, oh, okay, I'm in my head about this, which tells me I'm living elsewhere. I'm not in the present. I'm living elsewhere because I'm getting anxious, right? I'm thinking about what could happen, and the fear's kicking in from all the unknowns, right? I don't know why she did that. I don't know how to respond to that. I don't know. So it's this, right? I'm living elsewhere, which means I'm not in my soul space right now. I can't address this from a soul space right now. So what I needed to do was bring my attention back to this present moment. And the way I did that was by simply sitting down and closing my eyes and taking a breath and put my hand on my heart and just breathe into all the feelings that were coming up for me. Just allow myself to breathe into them. And then I guided myself by saying, hey, Brooklyn, now might be a time for you to connect in with, your true mind. Open up that lens, open up that aperture to, the spiritual eye of your heart, and have a look at it from that space. And so it's kind of like in my mind's eye, I could imagine that aperture, if you like, opening up. And I could imagine myself being able to, shift into that heart space and really use that spiritual eye as my lens for why she might have done that. And so what I was able to see through that lens was all sorts of things. I saw that maybe she tapped her angry face by accident. I know I've tapped faces by accident before and I've had to go back and change them. I thought maybe it's triggered something in her, and I'm now experiencing all those feelings that perhaps she felt about herself, which was what prompted her to hit that angry face. And I was able to explore how those feelings felt. And I then noticed, I observed and witnessed that energy within me was then transmuting itself without effort to compassion and to empathy. And from there, I witnessed and observed that then energy moved into love. And so with that new awareness and that new experience of being in a space of love for her and that energy being transmuted, I was then able to send, if you like, that vibration of love out. And when you do that, that is referred to in soul teachings, in divine teachings, as an emptying. It's an emptying. And so when you empty like that and you disengage from ego and you come at things from that soul space, this is a step towards your fuller embodiment of your soul here on earth, right? I know, I told you it was going to get a bit deep today, but you might call it your ascension, but I call it a fuller embodiment. You're already your soul just as much as you are your flesh and bones. It's just, we've been taught our conditioning, our encoding, our programming has been to dismiss and squash a lot of this stuff. We don't go to school and learn about intuition and how to use that. We don't go to school and learn about your soul and how to connect in with that. We learn maths and science and English and sport and those sorts of things, very masculine things, so we can survive in a world that's full of masculine energy. But we're becoming awake and aware now that there's been this imbalance. And I think when we begin our private practice, we've been encoded as well subconsciously to be in that masculine energy. I can tell you I've sold over 60 bundles of my private practice with Soul Kit, right? And they're very masculine. That's people saying, I need structure, Brooklyn. And I will pay you for that structure. And that's fine. They can absolutely take that structure. But I've made all of that structure editable for them so that they can, if they want, if they're like you and I, they can use those policies and use those procedures in that kit as a way of embodying their soul, their truth, their authenticity, who they are, why they're on this earth, why they're here now. and give their clients an experience of love, of compassion, of kindness, of whatever it is your soul is wanting to share with the world. Maybe it's a message. And anyway, I'm getting off topic now, but this is something also that we're working more deeply on in the Private Practice with Soul class. And this month, the women in there are taking what they've done in January and February months to now create a process themselves from their soul that helps their clients, the people that they'll put on this earth to help, experience for themselves, have an experiential transformation that's rapid, that's quick, that heals them on some energetic level in some powerful and profound way. That's what they're being taught how to do now. And by the end of the month, they will have those things. And when they do, hopefully they will give me permission to share them with you as well, so that you can see the beautiful work, the deeper work. You can see what soul work looks like, because you'll have examples there of what soul work looks like from these women. So here's the thing. It's one thing to say that you're creating a private practice with soul, but it's another thing to understand what that actually means. And it doesn't mean having a strategy. It means being willing, being aware of connecting in with your true mind, and allowing yourself to see things that happen in, for, and around the practice through that spiritual eye of your heart. And once you can do this, you practice this, and it becomes almost second nature. And as a result of that, there's no limit to what becomes available for you in your private practice. And how cool is that? How cool is that? Okay. Oof, I told you it was a big one today. I would love to support you with this, as you know. So as usual, if you have questions, let me know, or you can ask them in the groups. If you want to access any of the free or paid resources, you can do that as well. There are 2 places available for coaching with me for any woman that's wanting to learn how to embody her soul more deeply and create that soul-informed private practice. And yeah, I can't wait to hear more about your journey, and to hear how this episode landed for you today and resonated for you today. And I hope it's what you needed to hear. Thank you so much for listening to another episode today. I appreciate you more than you could possibly know. Have a beautiful Saturday, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Private Practice with Soul podcast today. If you're looking for clarity, if you need help with branding, your processes, and bringing everything into alignment with your soul's purpose for your private practice, head to the show notes and click the link for more information about the Private Practice Monthly Mentorship Group. You are going to love it. I can't wait to see you in there. Thanks so much for listening. Bye.